Hi, I'm Sam Weeb, and this is brought to you by MysteryWritingMastery.thinkific.com, which is an online school for mystery writers. And today we're going to talk about manuscript critiques. What is a manuscript critique? Who needs one? Do you need one? And are there any other options? So what is a manuscript critique? Well, as it sounds like, you are getting feedback. You're getting a professional critique on your manuscript, usually your novel. So somebody is reading that. They are giving you feedback designed to make that book clearer, more marketable, and better, hopefully. There are people who swear by manuscript critiques and think that you can't live without one, and that all novels need that kind of in-depth, intensive feedback in order to get published. And there are also people who believe that they're worthless and, if you do that, you're not a real writer. And I think both of those are myths. They're not something that we need to concern ourselves with. The goal, I think, for any book is just to make it as good as possible. Whether that's something that you can do on your own, whether that's something that your editor and copy editor will do when you get to the publication stage, or whether it's something that you ask somebody to help you with. All of those are valid. So who does manuscript critiques? Well, you can suborn a friend into reading your book and telling you what works and what doesn't work for them. And if your friend is an avid reader in the genre, that can be really, really valuable feedback. But a manuscript critique is designed to go a little bit deeper, not just giving you line-by-line feedback or editing notes, but also a big picture assessment. How marketable is the book, or how close to being publishable is it? Obviously, this is just one person's opinion, but that can be a valuable opinion. So what's right for you? A manuscript critique, mystery writing mastery, something else? Well, it depends. It depends on what stage you are as a writer. It depends on what stage your manuscript is in. And it also depends on your finances and where you want to go overall. I think that for a certain writer, a manuscript critique is really, really valuable. And I've done a couple recently that I think helped the writer get to where they wanted to go. So in one case, they had a thriller that was like 80% there. It was 80% as good, to my way of thinking, as something that you'd see on the bookstore racks. So my feedback was about cutting out subplots and honing the story and fixing some of the language and dialogue to make that as good as the kind of book that you'd pick up in a bookstore. One thing that I did was really overhaul the opening. Right, their opening was a little bit slow and dull, and but it had a great, very short chase scene in it. So by focusing on that, we were able to not just speed up the opening, which is always a good thing with the first book, but also find a way to make that little chase thematically connected to the rest of the story. So that, seeing how the main character reacts in this very dangerous situation will hopefully define their character and give you a sense of where they're going in the story. So I think that that's a case where a manuscript critique really helped that person, and I wouldn't be surprised if their book is on the shelves in a year. On the other hand, I have had people say, I want a manuscript critique, and send me something that's very amateurish. And, that's their prerogative. I am here to help, and if I agree to take someone on because their project sounds interesting, I want to give them the best feedback that I can. But if the writing is very, contrived, if the characters don't really work, and if it seems like they haven't read deeply in the genre, which to me is the kiss of death, because then you're just sort of recycling the same cliches. No amount of critique is going to fix a fundamental flaw like that, right? The thing that they need to do is get that book as good as it can be and then put it aside and write something else, right? Thinking long term. So I do think that manuscript critiques have value for some writers. And it also depends on finances, because this is an expensive process. it takes at least 6 to 8 hours, sometimes a lot longer, for someone to read through a 300-page book. And if you're getting paid by the hour, that can really add up. And that's not the time that you need to prepare notes, to consult with the client, all of those kinds of things. One of the things that I do when I do a manuscript critique is give people an option of just a short passage. So we'll do, an hour's worth, so they can see what the process is like before they get too financially invested. But the bottom line is that a manuscript critique can be really valuable, but it can also be really expensive. And the feedback is designed for that book. And that can be a plus or a minus. If you're writing something else in a different genre, or if you're growing as a writer, the feedback is maybe not going to be as applicable. Mystery Writing Mastery, on the other hand, is designed less as a one-on-one project focused on your particular novel, and more about helping you develop the principles and the fundamentals that you can apply to your work. So it's less about giving you a manuscript critique level of feedback, and more about helping you develop the skills so that you can do your own manuscript critiques. I think that this would save you money in the long term, but obviously I'm a little biased on that. The goal with Mystery Writing Mastery is for each session to help you develop not just a sense of the genre and the tricks behind the genre and things like, how many suspects to create, or how to create an interesting detective, but also to help you develop some of those creative writing fundamentals that, will help you with your books. So the goal with Mystery Writing Mastery is not to help elevate one book. It's to develop the skills so that you can not only write with a little bit more understanding of the genre, but also, develop those skills and be more aware of the different moving parts of a mystery or a crime novel. And I should also say that it's a lot cheaper than a manuscript critique. And I think that is a factor in its favor. It was not designed to be, some $5,000 course that's going to, promise you a miracle. It's about helping you develop those skills. And I wanted to make it as reasonably priced as I could. The bottom line is that if you have money, or if you have a short-term plan for your manuscript, and most importantly, if you have made your book, your manuscript, as good as it can be, and you know that it's still not quite there, then I think a manuscript critique is the best possible option, because then you're getting feedback to raise and elevate that one specific book, and doing that in a short period of time. If you're thinking more long-term about building a career as a writer, if you're on a budget, then I think that Mystery Writing Mastery is a better option. And often when people ask me which one of those should I go with, they're leaning more towards a manuscript critique, because they think that that'll be more fun, more interactive, and it will. But it will also be more expensive and more limited in its scope. So if you're thinking short term, if you have money, and if you know that your book needs that extra little something, I think a manuscript critique is the best option. If you're thinking long term, or if you're thinking about developing your skills on a budget, I would go with Mystery Writing Mastery. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope this was helpful. Thanks. This is brought to you by mysterywritingmastery.thinkific.com. If you go over to our page, you can sign up for Beginning Your Mystery, which is a free online course about finding and developing ideas for mystery novels.